Never walked into a room so silent before. This is very, don't laugh, you're not allowed to do that. You know what, just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
Hi guys, this is Tiana and you're watching Tiana's React. So something unbelievable just happened in America. Just picture this, a massive hall filled with the most powerful military leaders in the country. Hundreds of generals and admirals gathered in one place. The stage was set for Trump and his defense secretary to deliver fiery speeches. Trump was expecting loyalty, he was expecting applause, but when the moment came, there was absolute silence. Not one clap, not one cheer, just a chilling, heavy silence that spoke louder than words. Their silence was visible, their faces expressionless, their exit quiet. In that moment, people began to wonder, was this just discipline or was it a silent protest against Trump's attempt to control the military? Let's move into the video, guys, and see people's reactions to this.
When I saw the silent protests of those soldiers at the military parade, there was really only endless anger in my heart. Rump, you always want to turn national ceremonies into personal shows. Do you still have any sense of shame? Rump, I hope you didn't sleep at the military parade. You saw those silent eyes and deliberately lose step. This is the most powerful accusation against this farce. What will you do about this? Will you continue to deduct their wages? Or just fire them directly? The soldiers are telling everyone in their own way that there is no respect here, only trampled dignity. As the governor of California, I have seen countless soldiers who fought desperately for the people. Their courage and sense of responsibility cannot be so desecrated by you. If you treat the military parade as a joke, you are laying down every soldier who have dedicated themselves to the country. Or actions have angered everyone. Your disregard for the military and abuse of power must be dealt with seriously. What Americans need is a leader who respects the military and cares for the people, rather than someone who tramples on the dignity of the country.
To provide training for a quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. And this is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within.
That was Donald Trump today in front of 800 military leaders, silent. That silence is important. I'll get to that later. Telling them that they're going to have to attack American civilians on American soil. Calling those civilians the enemy from within. You know, I'm the enemy from within. If you're watching this, you're probably the enemy from within too. What Donald Trump asked those military leaders to do is shred the Constitution. Violate their oath to honor the Constitution. No wonder they weren't clapping. Pete Hegseth also spoke at this meeting. What did he want?
We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement.
Those stupid rules of engagement, they have a name. They're called the Geneva Conventions. We've signed on to them again and again and again. Why? Because we've committed ourselves to not committing war crimes. No wonder the military sat silent. What is Trump demanding of his military? Let's be honest, war on the streets. He calls it war. War on our own. He wants to use it to stifle dissent, to stifle me. Probably you too. What is Hegseth demanding? Clean shaven, mostly for racial, talk to black men about beards, and religious, talk to non-Christian men about beards. Reasons to be trained like pit bulls with arms to commit war crimes. Do you want that? I didn't think so. What Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth promoted to its military today was a military state that stifles dissent through its military and abroad is reviled by the rest of the world for its barbarism. There are two things standing in the way of Trump and Hegseth's dictator dreams. One is the military that they address today. Will they violate their oath? Their silence today gives me a little bit of hope that they won't. And two, us, will we stand in the way through mass demonstrations? There's going to be one October 18th. Through mass strikes if necessary, through mass civil disobedience if necessary. That's how other countries beat back dictatorships. We have an emerging dictatorship. Are we ready? I am. I hope you are too.
Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump both spoke to the top military leaders in the United States military today, and the silence was deafening. Not only did Pete Hegseth not get a round of applause, he didn't get a cheer, he didn't get a single thing. He spoke to a group of warrior leaders about warrior ethos, apparently, but all I heard was anti-DEI rhetoric and how much he hated fat people and women. And then Donald Trump did the same thing. He went on a whole spiel about Donald Trump. He went on a whole spiel about tariffs. He went on a whole spiel about how, well, just watch this little clip.
And we want war because we want to have no wars, but you have to be there, and sometimes you have to do it. I have said.
Then he gave us this gem also, claiming that we're being invaded from within. I'm sure he's talking about those radical leftists that just want free health care.
Well, America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within.
I watched the entirety of both of these speeches, and for them to be met with the types of silence that they were met with by military leaders who refused to acknowledge the absurdity of the comments that were being made. Today, that means the White House and Pete Hegseth are probably trying to figure out how to fire all of these individuals because, for once, their generals, his generals as Donald Trump calls them, rejected him.
The address by Pete Hegseth, the generals and the admirals, and they were all having to be seething with contempt, going, wait a second, I left my troops,
right.
I left the forward positions that I had been put in to defend America and defend American interests across the globe, to come have this guy lecture me about warrior ethos and some bizarre pep rally. And then Donald Trump came up, and as we said yesterday, again, it was like a campaign speech that you might have seen late in the campaign. That was Willie up until the very end when, as the Wall Street Journal says, Donald Trump told our military leaders that he may want to use the military against Americans, saying the enemy within, talking about using the United States military to train. I don't care what party you're in. I don't care how MAGA you are. I don't care how long you've been supporting Donald Trump. That's a serious breach. That's a breach not only of military tradition, that's a breach of the law. It's a breach in every way. There is no way. And I know right now watching, there are Republicans in the Senate. There are Republicans in the House who understand what an extraordinary breach that is, what he said was. And now is the time, because they held their right hand up, and they took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of this land. This would be a pretty good time for them to actually execute that oath and say, no, we don't use the United States military to attack Americans. We don't use the United States military to fight, quote, the enemy within, especially when Donald Trump is now defining enemies as public interest groups that oppose his politics.
I think in many ways, both Secretary Hegseth and President Trump were surprised. They expected kind of a rah-rah pep rally, and they didn't get that from the people, as you say, who'd flown in, men and women from all corners of the world, left their posts to listen to Pete Hegseth lecture them about warrior ethos and wokeness in the military and everything else. They didn't get the response they expected. In fact, there were a couple of moments where Pete Hegseth sort of paused for a laugh or applause. Did everything but the Jeb Bush please clap. And these generals and senior leaders just sat there and watched, wondering what on earth they were doing there.
The word I kept hearing from them was embarrassment. Because if you look at that picture and you listen or have viewed what happened yesterday in Quantico, you saw myriad numbers of Silver Star awards. You saw myriad Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, Combat Infantry badges. and they were being lectured on how to do push-ups and lose weight and shave, and it was truly mortifying. But the larger question is, going forward, what happens to the military with this internal dissension that you can seemingly feel when you witness an event like yesterday?
When you look at those faces, it's what I predicted when I was on the show the other day, and that you're going to get poker faces and a stoicism that was reflective of professionalism. But truthfully, those individuals will leave that room, or left that room yesterday, and they'll start discussing and analyzing how they can implement some of the lawful orders that they got. Okay, great. We can buck up the standards. We can take a look at the kinds of things to get some soldiers, not all, certainly not even the majority, back in better shape. Take a look at what our ranks look like. But there were also soldiers and all ranks of services in that audience that said, wait a minute, when they were writing down the same kind of checklist that I was writing down, saying, wait a minute, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that, or this is a true violation of what we are as professionals, or hey, I've got women in my ranks who are performing admirably. Why should I kind of lump them all together like the secretary did? Or I'm certainly now going to debate with myself, what am I going to say if I'm asked to go on the street and conduct illegal actions? And I guarantee you that the people in that audience will not execute illegal orders. We've been saying that for a long time. This was a disciplinary approach in public with cameras so the whole nation could see, and it was an attempt at separating the military institution from the people that they defend.
Nearly 800 of America's top military leaders were summoned from around the globe, apolitical officers who remained silent as their commander-in-chief took the stage and offered this greeting.
You can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
That set the tone for more awkward moments to come, including the president's suggestion that dangerous U.S. cities like those where National Guard are currently deployed should be used as training grounds for U.S. troops.
This is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within.
Illinois Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Iraq War veteran, said Trump's proposal is illegal
and unconstitutional. You cannot deploy our military onto the streets of our cities.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth opened the meeting and ripped into diversity initiatives put in place by previous administrations.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions.
That includes, he said, a return to the highest male physical fitness standards.
I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men.
And he took aim at the highest ranking officers.
It's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look.
Vermont Democrat Peter Welch said the meeting was unnecessary and a bad idea.
It's a further effort to politicize the military. It's very, very alarming. There is no reason to bring all of these people at enormous taxpayer expense to Washington to get a pep talk.
Hegseth told the audience they could disagree with him, but
the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign.
Charlie, we did not hear any reaction from the generals and the admirals in the room. Take us through why that's the case.
Well, Maurice, it's part of the decorum of protocol for officers not to applaud or cheer during political events or even some rallies. But while there were a few smiles, a bit of laughter here and there to some of the things that President Trump was saying, some polite applause, for the most part, the room was silent through roughly 2 hours of speeches.
Charlie, the Secretary Hegseth is reviewing the military handling of hazing, bullying, harassment. Explain what that's about.
Yeah, so this is an overhaul, and if you'll pardon me for reading. So Secretary Hegg said there should be an overhaul of department policy defining the conduct by service members, and that includes hazing, bullying, harassment. They say it's clearly broad and promising to dismiss the records of tough leaders with past infractions.
Okay, Charlie Daggett at the Pentagon, thank you.
The room at Quantico was filled with men and women who have spent their lives not just carrying rifles, but carrying the burden of thought. They've studied Sun Tzu, who warned that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. They know that lethality without restraint is not strategy, it is butchery. They have wrestled with Clausewitz, who declared that war is the continuation of politics by other means, a truth that demands clarity of purpose before the first shot is ever fired. They have waded through Thucydides' grim lesson that the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must, and they have vowed to be better than that cynicism by choosing law and restraint over barbarism. They've read Grant, who wrote of the Civil War that the art of war is simple enough. Find out where your enemy is, get at him as soon as you can, strike him as hard as you can, and keep moving. But even Grant, bloody and relentless, knew victory meant binding the wounds of a nation, not gloating in violence. The point is this. These generals live by philosophies that understand war as the most consequential of human actions. Their decisions have carried lives in the balance. They know that raw violence is a tool only to be used with precision, with justification, and with the dignity of restraint. They know that war has consequences that echo for generations. Pete Hegseth does not know this. He is a little boy with a big mouth, waving around the strength of older siblings he has never had to become himself. He mistakes slogans for wisdom, violence for professionalism, and brute force for strategy. He preaches lethality like a child who's never had to carry the ghost of the battlefield home with him. He sees the military as a weapon to be swung, not a burden to be borne. And the truth is that the United States military is the most powerful force on earth, not because it is the most violent, but because it has chosen discipline over chaos, professionalism over cruelty. We've set the standards for ethics, for rules of engagement, for what it means to fight with dignity. We may not always agree with the wars our leaders order, but our service personnel carry themselves with pride and decorum. There are ghosts, yes. There always are. But there is also pride in knowing that we do not wage war like a third-rate regime. If we abandon the Geneva Conventions, if we reduce ourselves to brutality and call it strength, then the world will follow us into the pit. Other nations will cast off restraint, and humanity will slide backwards into darkness. And the final truth is that the United States is not under existential threat. We are not besieged. We are not Rome sacked by barbarians. There is no justification for turning the most disciplined and capable force on earth into a bludgeon of political vengeance. Only a child would ask for that. Only a fool would think of that as strength. So let us name what they said at Quantico and why those words matter, and why they make him look small. He called for a tearing down of guardrails. He mocked standards and promised to strip away the legal and moral constraints that keep a professional force professional. He spoke of renaming the institution as if a new placard could remake history. He derided internal checks and inspector processes as weaponized complaints. He argued for higher, male-based fitness standards, as if physical benchmarks alone made wisdom and judgment irrelevant. And he flirted with the idea of loosing our forces to act with fewer restraints on foreign battlefields, and chillingly also here at home. Those are not abstract reforms. They are seismic changes to the contract between the soldier and the state. And these words make him look small because every officer in that room has seen what happens when those guardrails go away. They've watched insurgencies grow out of careless violence. They've read the reports that it turned into viral recruitment videos for radicals. They've knelt beside cots where names are written on slips of paper and learned that nothing erases a family's grief except truth and restraint and accountability. When Hegseth promises to loosen the leashes, the generals hear not courage, but the appetite of chaos. Not clarity, but impetuousness. They know the arithmetic of consequence. For every enemy struck without care, there are 10 who will rise in hatred, and 50 children who will remember the smoke. His rhetoric seeks applause. It seeks the horny little rush of spectacle where a man can feel large on a podium. He is pleading for a patent moment, a single frame to hang on a wall. without the patience to earn it. That is the counterfeit of leadership. Real leaders sit at maps at 3 a.m. and argue with lawyers about the rules of engagement because they know those rules keep the republic sane. They rise and sleep with the calculus of loss in their mouths, and they do not monetize war on cable to sell a goddamn book. The scandalous irony is that the enemies we faced across deserts and mountains were often brutal and reckless. They lacked our care and our discipline, our doctrine and our adherence to some shred of law. They fought dirty because they had no better answer. And we outperformed them precisely because we did not mirror their methods. We won because we were better. We were better organized, more disciplined, and more crucially restrained when necessary. To adopt their cruelty is not to become stronger, it is to become smaller than what we claim to be. So call him what you will. An airman who traded a uniform for a TV, a weekend soldier who dreams in headlines, a man with a law degree who believes paper alone confers wisdom. He wants the thunder without the ledger, the graveyard of applause without the graves. The generals did not need to say this out loud. Their silence said it for them. That a man who never carried the full weight of command could not stand before those who have and lecture them on sacrifice. And if we let this moment pass as a spectacle, as theater for the hungry and the proud, then we will have accepted a dangerous proposition. That performance is a substitute for prudence, and that slogans can replace study, and that cruelty is a kind of courage. But if we remember the books those men carried, if we honor the restraint that kept our forces human, then we will understand the true cost of this folly and refuse to pay it. Pete wants thunder, so he stands beneath flags and bangs a drum until his palms bleed, and he thinks this noise is command, but noise is cheap. And the generals at Quantico know the price of silence and the price of sound. He will buy this platform with other people's reverence and rents a language of sacrifice to sell a show. He trades in medals like props and cues as lines to cameras and then wonders why the room will not clap. It's because that is not courage. It's commerce. Defiance till death.
Look, guys, across America, people are calling it the boldest stand the military has ever taken without saying a word. Was it really defiance or just fear of what might happen if they spoke up? What do you think, guys? Was this silent loyalty, caution, or resistance? Well, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Do well to like, share, and of course, subscribe to keep the channel moving. Till next time.